What's up, everybody? It's Nabil and my man Spiky here with the Couch Fighter Podcast, Episode 2. We're going to be going over the McGregor Takeover, the conference highlights for UFC 229, which was yesterday, so our reaction. And then we're going to do a little session of Hot Seat where Spiky's going to throw out various MMA subjects. We're going to talk about those.
The first thing I wanted to talk about was Joanna got a fight.
Joanna, yep.
She's fighting
Shevchenko.
Valentina. How do you feel about that?
I know they have fought in the past, and I think some of the losses on Joanna's record are actually from Shevchenko. Shevchenko's coming off a big win. She was originally supposed to fight Nico Montano, who pulled out for weight cut issues. So essentially the fight was scrapped and she was taken off the card altogether.
I call bullshit on that. I feel like she's just scared, dude.
Yeah, I would be too.
And what did she fight when Joanna and Valentina fought? Was it Muay Thai?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't think it was full MMA.
But they're not going to grapple. I don't see
I don't see them being grapplers. And truthfully, if they were to grapple, I believe Valentina Shevchenko has the advantage. I believe she beat Juliana Pena, wasn't it, by submission? And she showed off some grappling skills in that fight. So.
And she did that weird dance.
Yeah. So I think overall, I think she's a more well-rounded fighter. That and she's coming off a strong win. Joanna has won. She just beat Jessica Andrade, but yeah, I think she's still trying to get remove the cobwebs and whatnot, and kind of get that Thug Rose, situation behind her, and losing the belt.
Which she got her confidence back in a way, She's got some wins under her belt after that loss. She did lose twice against Rose. Rose was looking fucking phenomenal.
Yep. And I apologize. I said Jessica Andrade. She actually beat Tisha Torres.
Yes, Tisha Torres. That's right. And Tisha ain't no hoe.
Nope.
So what's your predictions with that fight? Joanna versus Valentina. Do you think Valentina can pull it off, or do you think Joanna got that confidence to shock the world? Because I'm thinking she's an underdog in this fight, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking so too, just based off previously and losing in the past. I'm going to go with Valentina Shevchenko. I think she's on an upswing in her career. She's looking really strong. It was debatable that she beat Amanda Nunes for the title, so she could be, going for her second belt.
I had Valentina winning that fight against Amanda Nunes. The size difference is going to play a factor. Of course, Valentina weighs more, so she's going to drop the weight.
Right.
Joanna's going to have to gain the weight.
Right.
I like Joanna's chances in that sense, that because Valentina has to drop and cut the weight and Joanna's gaining the weight, I just feel like she's going to have some kind of advantage there.
Right.
But how much power is Valentina going to lose? Valentina can make this maybe a short fight.
Right.
The other topic that I wanted to talk about was the UFC press conference. That just happened.
Yeah. Yep.
With McGregor taking over. Right. That was hilarious.
Absolutely.
It was so good. I loved every second of it. The only thing that I felt like that was kind of just weird in the beginning was no fans. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I know they did that. I was watching the Chael Sonnen podcast, and he mentioned that he believes that they did it. Now, it wasn't disclosed and wasn't, made official that that's what it was, but he thinks it was essentially keeping from Conor and Khabib getting into an altercation. If fans are there, the fans, they love Conor. They're going to get to talking. And Khabib has a big following as well. So I think they were taking every precaution. This is going to be the biggest fight in MMA history. They do not want any chances. They don't want another bottle throwing incident like the Diaz fight, anything like that. And we don't want it. I don't want anyone getting hurt. I want to see this fight. So.
Speaking of Conor coming in with not one but two bottles.
Right.
Proper 12, which, I'm now a fan. He sold me. I want to try that.
Yep.
How do you feel about Conor having Proper 12 on the canvas and sponsored by the UFC? Do you think it was a good move?
I think it's a good move. I mean, he's the sport's biggest star. He's going to generate the money. He's obviously marketable. I hear he had a suit line coming out, which, I mean, who wouldn't wear a Conor McGregor suit, the tailor-made, you know what I mean?
The little fuck you stitches.
Yeah, exactly. I'd
awesome.
purchase one of those. I think it's good for the UFC. And who's not going to want to be on that card?
Right, exactly.
So I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's big for Ferguson to be on that card with Pettis. Pettis, obviously, again, coming off that win, puts him right there in title contention. So if he beats Ferguson, he's up there. if Ferguson don't make it and Khabib don't make it, you might even see Pettis versus Conor. It's a chance. It's a chance. These guys both hasn't showed up for their own fights.
Right.
So there is a chance we could see Conor versus Pettis, which I'm not mad at either.
It's not a bad fight.
Yeah, I'm not mad at either.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to talk about also was the tone of the conference. So Dana White went on social media and he was talking about this was the darkest conference he's ever been to because of the back and forth bickering between Conor and Khabib and going back to Khabib's native, just what he stands for as, what is he? Dagestanian and their background, and Conor just having so much knowledge about what's going on in that culture.
Yeah, he really did his research.
And he always does, I was listening to a podcast earlier today where they were talking about how Conor, he always has his research down pat. I mean, if you remember, he was the one who called out TJ going up against the alpha males and saying that he's the snake in the grass.
He created all that buzz.
Because he does his research. He knew what was going on in that camp.
Right.
And also, what the other thing is if you listen to the conference, there's a part where that Ali gentleman from Khabib's camp talks a little bit of crap with Conor, and Conor jumps on him.
Right.
Well, Conor told him, I forgot the gentleman's son's name, but he mentioned his son, Noah.
Noah, yeah.
And that's the guy's son, supposedly, that he abandoned in Colorado as he became an informant for the FBI. And Conor knew this stuff. That's how crazy Conor is. It's not just Khabib. He knows everybody in that circle. So that's huge. But how do you feel about the tone? Did you think it was dark, like Dana said?
I thought it was. I think because it's getting into bloodlines, it's getting real personal now. Obviously it was a very similar with the Aldo thing, but I think even more so, like you said, he's bringing up people's kids now. He's talking about Khabib's father, who obviously they are very close,
who's stuck in Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and he did mention just like the history and like who he was with in pictures, why he put more background into why he called him a coward. He put Khabib on the spot when Khabib said he didn't want to take a picture with Putin, and Conor took a picture with Putin.
Right.
And the way,
that was at the World Cup, right?
Yeah, and the way Conor just gets up at him and tells him, "You told me location. I'm right here. I'm in front of you. Let's say something, do something." Do you think it was Khabib's confidence and his ability to keep cool? Is that why he was so laid back during the conference and how he just kept his composure? Or do you think he just was lost and didn't know what to say back to Conor?
Truthfully, I think it was a little bit of both. Khabib, has been a little more vocal in past press conferences. I think he knows going in that this is the press conferences he's going to lose. He's not going to, out-talk Conor. So I think part of it was he didn't want to get into a session where he ends up like Jeremy Stevens, Who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, and that's forever in highlights.
Exactly.
Yeah, they even put it before the conference started. They were doing
exactly.
That.
So that's part of it. And then the other part of it, I do believe that he was pissed and he just wants to get his hands on him, and he's probably in a dark place. And come the fight, I believe Conor's really gonna turn it up because he's gonna make Khabib feels like he needs a takedown immediately to get him in his trap.
I just loved. Conor is the king at this. So much so, even Dana said that he is better than Ali at this shit talking. And you know what? It's getting there. It's at a level where it's like Conor is just the king at mind games. Not only that, he shitted on Khabib. He was talking about him taking a shit on the bus because he was scared out of his mind. Talking about if you got off the bus, you would have died that night. He was talking some mad shit and saying, "I showed you my hands, pussy." Right. Even though Conor did come with boys and Khabib was kind of
in a weight cut process, already depleted
by himself in a sense.
Right.
He did have some people behind him, but he wasn't as loaded. Conor still made it look like he was a bitch that wouldn't come out of the bus.
Right.
Talking about he hid behind girls, and he's the reason why this happened. Conor focusing all that negativity right on Khabib. It's just it's amazing.
Right.
To me, I want Conor to win this fight so bad, especially now. If Conor wins this fight, he's the man. That's it. He has been in the past, but You got to agree. Like
Right.
this makes him like.
Yeah, like I said on the first episode, I truly believe if he beats Khabib, he is definitely in the category and in the argument for GOAT. I mean, I know people in a sense say that he has never defended his belts, in previous organizations. But if you look at it, when you go back to his body of work at 145, he almost cleaned out the division before he even became a champ. With the exception of Frankie Edgar, all the top level guys that are still there, he fought and he beat.
I mean, even Chad Mendes is off of a spectacular knockout win, right?
Over Miles Jury.
Yeah, he's back into the game. He's like, again, like Pettis, he's up for contention right after that fight. So Conor, I mean, Max Holloway, champion. Conor destroyed him. Not destroyed him, I shouldn't say that, but Conor did defeat him with a torn ACL.
Unanimous decision, yeah.
Chad,
Chad
ran
Mendes.
through him.
Yep.
Eddie Alvarez ran through him. And in a sense, I mean, you can argue that I believe Conor would have beat Frankie Edgar. Considering that he beat his training partner.
I believe so. I think Frankie always comes ready, so the cardio problems you wouldn't have to deal with. I believe he has better fundamental wrestling than Chad Mendes, but I think the person that beats Conor has to be very, very explosive. And I think when you compare body types and fight styles, Chad is still more explosive than a Frankie, so I believe that left hand would have still found its way at some point in that fight.
And I do believe that when Frankie did work to Chad and knocked him out, I feel like it was just when you get your head rung, when you get knocked out, the brain tells you, oh, this is how I stop punishment. Okay,
Right.
cool. I'm gonna do it every time I get hit,
Right.
and it'll just turn off.
Right.
So in a sense, when Conor knocked him out, it just makes him susceptible to
Right.
getting knocked out.
Right, and then previous to that was
'Cause when do you
a
see
war
Frankie
with
knock people out?
and then there was previous to that was a war with Aldo. So right after Aldo, you got Conor, heavy hands, gets hit by that left, and then you have Frankie, who like you mentioned, is not necessarily known for his power, but has had knockouts. He knocked out Gray Maynard. I think he dropped Matt Veach. So he has had those, but you're absolutely right. Not
I mean,
a knockout artist.
You
by any
look
means.
at Frankie Edgar versus Aldo, and Aldo dominates that fight.
Right.
Aldo versus Chad Mendes, and Aldo has a little trouble with Chad.
Right.
And now, after Conor knocking him out, I mean, Conor just does that to people.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was going back to Conor being the king of talking shit in press conferences, and a little off topic of MMA, but Floyd, to me, was the only person that actually get Conor on a couple press conferences.
Right.
Mind you, it was consecutive, and there was a bunch of them, but I felt like Floyd took one or two of those conferences.
Right. And the reason I agree with that is because what could Conor say? Floyd has never lost, and Floyd had more money than him. So those are two big subjects that Conor always, focuses on in any press conference, is the fact that he has money and the fact that he's a champ.
But Conor still found a way to clown on him.
With the C.J. Watson
jersey, and then the way that Floyd wears, jogging pants and a sweater, talking about he needs the money and shit like that. Even though he's rich, buying $18 million watches and shit like that. But that gets into this. I mean, I know it's a little off topic, but how do you feel about Floyd announcing that he wants to come back in December and fight Manny Pacquiao? Do you think it's worth it?
Truthfully, I don't think so. I know Floyd is actually older than Manny Pacquiao, but I just feel like if you look at their careers, Manny Pacquiao just seemed to decline a lot quicker than Floyd, and people have said Floyd is an absolute nut. He'll go partying and then 3 a.m. go for like a 7-8 mile run.
But why not steal Canelo's thunder? Why not go and just throw a wrench into the Canelo Triple G saga and just be like, oh, I want to fight Canelo? I mean, in a sense, Canelo was an easier fight than Manny Pacquiao was for Floyd.
Yeah.
I mean, mind that Floyd fought him when he was,
a lot
younger and
right.
Inexperienced, but Floyd could do it. He can pull it off, and he can say, okay, check this out. He beat Triple G, and I'm gonna beat Canelo.
Right.
But then again, you get into the boxing politics of it.
And it's a riskier fight. I think Pacquiao, he has already beaten him. I don't think Pacquiao has gotten any better or any faster since then.
Yeah.
Granted, Floyd hasn't either, but I just feel like Floyd's style compared to Manny Pacquiao's style, when you put those together, I think Floyd wins 9 out of 10 times, unless Pacquiao hits him with something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So UFC, I think it's 230, that the Nate Diaz Poirier card.
Mm-hmm.
Poirier, can't pronounce his last name. We'll call him Dustin.
Dustin.
The thing about that is they say that there's not a main event for it. Like there was rumors that Tyrone Woodley was going to fight Covington
I
on there.
just read he actually went out for surgery again. I just don't
On
know
his
what it
thumb.
was. Thumb.
You just look
okay.
at his thumb on
Got it.
Till's face.
Got it.
And how do you feel about that? Do you think John Jones deserves to be on that card?
Absolutely. He's
Hometown?
He's one of the biggest draws. And then I forget what podcast I was listening to. I believe it may have been Michael Bisping's podcast, where they said if you are going to put someone above Diaz, it's got to be a major star, and that major star would be John Jones. It doesn't make sense to put anyone else. I'd say the three or four biggest stars in MMA are obviously Conor, Brock, John Jones,
The Diaz brothers.
and the
could be in
Diaz
there.
brothers.
Yeah. I feel like you could put a title fight above it. Like Tyrone versus Covington would have been a title fight. It would have had to have been above it.
I can see that.
But then again, like, why not leave Nate Diaz as the main event? Like, why
Right.
not, put... I mean, it's kind of debatable if you put John Jones as the main event, considering the things that have happened in the past,
Right, with the 2 days before. And
Yep. Going back to that, who do you have winning that fight, Diaz or Poirier?
Diaz or Poirier? That's a tough one. I feel like the more dynamic striker is Dustin Poirier, but I feel like he opens himself up a lot, especially when he boxes. He almost boxes a little upright and stiff, and Diaz has great fundamental boxing. Looked like a much bigger guy when they actually faced off. The wrestling obviously goes towards Dustin, and then jiu-jitsu, with the long limbs, I'm going to go with Diaz. So I believe Dustin will be afraid of his jiu-jitsu to go in that, area of fighting with him. I think Diaz pulls it off.
I'm going to agree with you on that because even though Diaz has been away for a while, Poirier wants to play that game, that slobber knocker.
He becomes a brawler, yep.
And Diaz has the chin, number one.
Right.
And the cardio.
The cardio.
He does not stop biking. This
Right.
guy's a cyclist. He trains. He just keeps working. He has his own gym. They do have their own gym, I assume, and classes and things like that.
Yep.
And it's just, even if he took off that layoff, he just has that fighter's mentality.
Right.
But do I see Dustin pulling it off in a way? Yeah. I mean, Diaz
He's
has
got
been gone for a
knockout
while.
power. Granted, it's very hard to knock out
Diaz.
but if he rocks him, he can win a round. He can win a decision. Honestly, if he drops him and there's some cobwebs there, he might cinch up a submission too. So it's very possible. I just believe that Diaz, very much like Conor, is a master at mental warfare. Dustin has shown that he gets emotional, which is why he gets invited into brawls and partakes. And I just feel like Diaz is a smart guy. I think he's going to pull it off.
Who else has been confirmed for that card?
I don't know off the top of my head. I believe it's been finalized. You got to check into that.
Yeah, maybe next podcast
Right.
we'll dive deeper in there.
Yep.
So Gustafsson making a claim that he should fight for the interim title against John Jones.
John Jones.
Like you said, you felt like they probably should have done that on the 229 card.
Right.
When do you think we'll see that fight?
Well, December, I believe, is Brian Ortega, Max Holloway.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering if they would want to put it above that or right below that. I would like to see it then. I feel like John Jones has been out a long time. I feel like it would be a perfect end-of-year banger to do. So, yeah, hey, let's put it on.
Ortega. I wanted to see Khabib versus Ortega so bad.
That is an interesting fight.
I feel Ortega's asked for that fight.
Right.
He has the tools to counter
He's
his
a
wrestling.
huge 145.
Yep.
When him and Frankie fought, it looked like
He uppercutted him off the mat, bro.
Yeah, he lifted him off the grounds, and Frankie
It's
has
like
a
Mortal
chin.
Kombat.
Frankie has a chin, and then on top of that, he looked like they were separated by 2 weight classes. It looked like a 170 versus a like a 135, 145, which Frankie is 145.
He literally beat Cub Swanson twice in that fight.
Right. Oh, he submitted him twice.
twice.
Yeah, he just got saved by the bell, and then the second time he cinched up that guillotine.
Who does that, bro?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
jiu-jitsu.
to me, Ortega is rookie of the year. I mean, I'm a little upset that he didn't fight when Max pulled out, but
Jeremy Stevens.
it had to be the smarter decision. Even though I feel like he would have smoked Jeremy Stevens,
I believe so.
you don't want to lose that title shot. So
Right.
I'm a little upset that he didn't fight, but at the same time, I'm not mad at it because
Right.
I understand.
Right.
But going back to that Khabib and Conor press conference, Conor won that.
Yep.
Conor destroyed him in every single sense with talking shit about the family, talking shit about where he comes from, talking shit about him shitting on the bus literally, figuratively, in Irish. He was talking to him in a different language. I mean, Conor is just that guy. What was your reaction when you first watched it? When you first saw Conor walk in, like, were you like, oh shit, here we go? Or were you like, something about Conor was off, it's been 2 years? How did you feel?
I thought it was a great press conference. Obviously, I think Conor won. Has he had better press conferences? I believe so. I think he's a guy that feeds off energy. Fans love him, so he's going to naturally feed off that energy. Plus, I don't think he's as hungry. Listen, this fight is going to sell itself. The storyline, with the Dolly, they got into it before, what was it, UFC 205 in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Conor was punking everybody out there.
Yeah, he was trying to fight Tyron Woodley. So I feel like the fight is sold. I feel like he doesn't need to do the legwork. I think he knows this is a very formidable opponent. He's going to take all his time to train. But when he does come out and he does talk trash, he's going to make it count, and I think he did.
Now, Khabib was talking about smacking one of Conor's friends, which we know it was Artem, and asking him, why don't you tell him why he got smacked and stuff like that. Do you think that was a good comeback? Do you think Khabib mentioning Twitter and things like that, do you think it was like something to mention? Or do you think it was just like desperation of just trying to figure out ways to kind of get in Conor's head?
Yeah,
we know Conor's taking this fight. Sorry to interrupt. We know Conor's taking this fight because of what happened with Artem.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think it was a little bit of desperation. Like I said, Khabib is a pretty humble guy. Last time I've actually heard him talk trash was during the time he was going to fight Max Holloway, and I think, who else was he talking trash to? He doesn't typically talk trash. He's a pretty humble, quiet guy.
I've seen him push somebody on stage when he was.
Was that Michael Johnson?
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
Michael
was
Johnson.
it Abel Trujillo? I believe.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think that's where he put 21 takedowns in or something like that.
That's crazy,
so, yeah.
bro.
So,
do you think Khabib can take down Conor?
I think if he can get Conor up against the cage, if he can get his underhooks in and clinch him up, absolutely.
And that's where Conor's going to fall into the deep end.
Yeah.
Well, the crowd I can see is going to boo the shit out of him.
Yeah.
How about Conor telling him, if you don't make weight, your own countrymen are going to dispose of you? Do you think that's a true statement? Do you think that Khabib has to make this fight happen?
I think so. He's got a whole country behind him. And honestly, I believe Khabib is kind of the one who rallied behind this. After UFC 205 dominating win over Michael Johnson, he said Ireland 6 million and a Russian 150 million, or Irish 6 million. And I think he kind of brought in that, Russia versus Ireland. And he's got to show up now. He's got a whole country behind him.
Do you think the UFC did the right decision making this a Las Vegas fight, or should Conor have fought Khabib in Russia?
I would have loved to seen it in Russia.
Really?
I think it would have made massive numbers there. But I also believe that, I feel like Vegas is the fight capital. The biggest fights do happen there. And then it just generates a lot of money. People are going to, Dana White has even mentioned this, go out to eat, go to the casino, stuff like that after the fight. So go to the parties.
Vegas. Tickets are sold out.
Yep. I think they sold out within three minutes or something like that.
That's nuts. And
Ridiculous.
Then Dana said that this did more than Maymac. The highest numbered Maymac press conference, this did more than that. And It didn't have the fans. What was crazy to me was Conor feeds off of his fans.
Right.
And Conor talks shit in a sense, you feel like he's talking the shit to get something out of the fans, like laughter,
Right.
Rallying. But he was doing it with pretty much no one there.
Right, and it was pretty much
And
MMA reporters, analysts, and journalists.
I laughed so hard.
Yeah.
So hard at some of the things Conor said to this guy, especially when Conor switched it to an ad for his new whiskey,
Oh, yeah.
Proper
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
And oh my God,
He
it was so
hammered.
funny.
He was hammered.
Giving him the shot,
Yeah.
and it's your birthday, take the shot. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it
Yeah,
was so
really
funny.
taunting him. Really taunting him.
Yep,
there,
it was great. So what else is on the?
What else you got for me on the hot seat, Spike?
Let's think about this. What about the comparison to Ali as a shit talker? How do you feel about it? Do you think Conor is up there now?
I believe it's debatable. I definitely do. A lot of people argue that, when Ali was doing it, they didn't have social media, they didn't have Twitter, they didn't have people sharing stuff. So obviously, the stuff that Conor says is going to get a lot more attentions, be viral, all that stuff. But, on the other hand, he's even going into different, organizations and clowning people, like Draymond Green even. When he had the C.J. Watson thing, he ended up burning, Draymond. I think he met Cristiano Ronaldo and said he'd slap the head off of him. Conor doesn't give a shit. You know what I mean?
That's
So.
fucking awesome. Let's talk about this. Let's say Ferguson falls over a wire and hurts his leg. And let's say Khabib can't make weight.
Mm-hmm.
And they throw Pettis in there against Conor. First, do you think Pettis would take that fight?
Absolutely, he'd take that fight.
Okay.
Now, I believe the rumor was he was even going to get the fight with Khabib, and then they said that he asked for too much money last second. Now, to save this card, would the UFC do that? Absolutely. And then, truthfully, I think it's a great fight anyway. I think Conor wins that fight just because I think Conor has the better boxing. And then they kind of cancel each other out, taekwondo kicks and whatnot.
Okay. How do you see Conor, if you're saying Conor will win that fight, how do you see him winning and what round against Pettis?
Anthony Pettis. I'm going to say third round. TKO.
And if Pettis was to beat Conor, how do you see him winning?
If Pettis were to beat Conor, I see him hitting him with a vicious leg kick to the body. Like he did Donald Cerrone, something like that.
If I was to see Conor, I would have Conor also. The straight left hand down the pipe. If it lands, it's over. But if I seen Pettis beating him, I would see Pettis opening him up really nice with leg kicks and then pulling guard and hitting him with a triangle. That's how I see
Oh,
Pettis
man, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Anthony Pettis does have a sick ground game.
Yeah, and the triangle. We haven't seen. Conor's pretty good and crafty at getting out of submissions and things like that. But Pettis, high level locking on. Who did Conor fight that has jiu-jitsu like Pettis?
He fought Max Holloway, who doesn't have jiu-jitsu like Pettis, but is pretty good on the ground. But once again, this is a younger Holloway. I think he was 21, maybe 20 at the time, although Conor was young,
still on
too.
a run.
Yeah, he was still on a run. He was still, obviously up and
And
coming.
Conor beat him.
And
It's
Conor beat him.
nuts.
And then he blew out his ACL in that fight, too. So
Yep, that's awesome. So if Pettis fights Conor, you wouldn't be mad at it?
absolutely not. I would tune into that
What
fight. Now,
if-
I really want to see Khabib and Conor, but hey, if that's the fight that we got, I would still pay money for it.
Well, let's do another what if. Okay, so Anthony Pettis for some reason can't make the fight, or more likely Khabib doesn't make weight and they throw Ferguson in there with Conor. Is it a much more dangerous fight for Conor?
I think it's a more dangerous fight for Conor.
Really?
This is why I feel that way. Tony Ferguson does get hit. He does get clipped. He does open himself up. But I've seen this, and Kevin Lee, who dropped Tony Ferguson, said this as well, that in a very awkward way, he still rolls with punches, which takes a lot of the impact away. The guy's a cardio nut. I feel like Conor would drop him, but I don't feel that Conor could chase him down right away and put his lights out to win the fight in fear of getting caught with some type of submission. The guy did a cartwheel into a leg lock with the Edson Barboza fight, and then apart from that, Tony Ferguson has great wrestling. He has a good wrestling background, and his boxing. I don't know if you've seen some of his footage, but he does the speed bag with his elbows, and he'll literally
That's funny.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. The guy is creative. He's like a video game character. So I think that is a very tough fight for Conor. And the guy has very great conditioning. I honestly feel like Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson would probably be Conor's toughest fights.
Wow. Okay. I see it going kind of like the Nate Diaz 2 fight.
Okay.
Where Conor would have to do something that's been exposed by Ferguson, whether it be leg kicks or body shots or something. Obviously, if Ferguson rolls with the punches, Conor will get back on him. And I don't think Conor would be too scared of his jiu-jitsu because Nate wasn't able to pull off jiu-jitsu the second fight.
Right.
Especially when he got rocked. The first fight, Conor kind of gave it up, you know.
Yeah.
You know, he got wobbled, threw it out on the floor, and he didn't want to go out by punches, so he gave up his neck, you know.
Right. Keep in mind, though, Tony Ferguson has the wrestling that Nate doesn't have. And that
trips.
That can lead to a quick takedown very, very quickly.
I would love to see any of those fights, but all I know is Conor showing up.
He
and it doesn't matter who he's fighting. He'll do it.
I think they even said that he hinted that he had a broken orbital bone. Did you hear the rumors on that? Because he said we've been breaking bones.
The zygomatic arch, that's under the orbital bone. I mean, wow, if he does, that's kind of sad, you know, because I don't think it would make a difference because I don't see Khabib touching him on the handstand.
No.
Khabib, yeah, you're right, man. Khabib's going to have to shoot for life. Even Khabib was like, let's wrestle.
Right.
And Conor's like, let's wrestle. And he's like, okay, let's wrestle. And Conor's like, you wish. Like, you would love that.
Right.
He's like, you'll be wrestling my knuckles against your face.
Right.
He's like, you tap. He's like, I'm going to tap your head off the canvas.
Yep.
Conor's just so good at that shit talking.
Yep.
But we'll wrap it up there. And maybe next podcast, we'll talk more about 229. We definitely got to talk about Jones and the legacy that he's left behind, all the fights that he's done, and how it leads up to Gustafsson and what it means. I mean, to me, just talking a little bit on that, I think this Gustafsson fight is important for John's legacy. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for checking us out.